Chapter 8. The nurses wouldn't let us see Johnny. He's in critical condition, no visitors. But Two Bit wouldn't take no for an answer. That was his buddy in there, and he aimed to see him. We both begged and pleaded, but we weren't getting nowhere until the doctor found out what was going on. Let him go in, he said to the nurse. He's been asking for them, and it can't hurt now. Two Bit didn't notice the expression on his face. It's true. I thought numbly, he is dying. We went in, practically on tiptoe because the quietness of the hospital scared us. Johnny was still lying, with his eyes closed, but then Two Bit said, "Hey, Johnny kid," and he opened them, trying to grin. "Hey, y'all." The nurse, who was pulling the shades open, smiled and said, "So he can talk after all." Two Bit looked around. They treating you okay, kid?" "Don't," Johnny asked. "Don't let me put enough grease in my hair." "Don't talk," Two-Bit said, pulling up a chair. "Just listen. We'll bring you some hair grease next time. We're having a big rumble tonight." Johnny's huge eyes widened a little, but he didn't say anything. "It's too bad you and Daly can't be in it. It's the first big rumble we've had, not counting the time we whipped Shepard's outfit." "He came by," Johnny said. "Tim Shepard?" Johnny nodded. "Came to see Daly." Tim and Daly had always been buddies. "Did you know he got your name in the paper for being a hero?" Johnny almost grinned, and he nodded. "Tough enough," he managed. And by the way his eyes were glowing, I figured Silent Gentleman had nothing on Johnny Cade. I could see that even a few words were tiring him out. He was pale as a pillow and looked awful. Two-Bit pretended not to notice. "You want anything besides your hair grease, kid?" Johnny barely noticed. "The book." He looked at me. "Can you get another one?" Two-Bit looked at me too. I hadn't told him about Gone with the Wind. "He wants a copy of Gone with the Wind so I can read it to him," I exclaimed. "You want to run down to the drugstore and get one?" "Okay," Two-Bit said cheerfully. "Don't you all run off." I sat down in Two-Bit's chair and tried to think of something to say. "Daly's gonna be okay," I said finally, "and Derry and me, we're okay now." I knew Johnny understood what I meant. We had always been close buddies, and those lonely days in the church strengthened our friendship. He tried to smile again, and then suddenly went white and closed his eyes tight. "Johnny?" I said, alarmed. "Are you okay?" He nodded, keeping his eyes closed. "Yeah, it just hurts sometimes. It usually don't. I can't feel anything below the middle of my back." He lay breathing heavily for a moment. "I'm pretty bad off, ain't I, Pony?" "You'll be okay," I said with fake cheerfulness. "You're gonna be. We couldn't get along without you." The truth of that last statement hit me. We couldn't get along without him. We need Johnny as much as he needed the gang, and for the same reasons. "I won't be able to walk again," Johnny started with, faltering. "Not even on crutches, busted my back." "You'll be okay," I repeated firmly. "Don't start crying," I commanded myself. "Don't start crying. You'll scare Johnny." "You want to know something, Pony Boy? I'm scared stiff. I used to talk about killing myself." He drew a quivering breath. "You don't I don't want to die now. It ain't long enough. 16 years ain't long enough. I wouldn't mind so much if there weren't so much stuff I ain't done yet. And I'm and so many things I ain't seen. It ain't fair. You know what? That time we were in Windrixville is the only time I've always been out away from our neighborhood." "You ain't gonna die," I said, trying to hold my voice down. "And don't get juiced up because the doc won't let us see you no more if you do." 16 years in the streets, you can learn a lot, but all the wrong things, not things that you want to learn. 16 years in the street, you see a lot, but all the wrong sights, not the sights you want to see. Johnny closed his eyes and rested quietly for a minute. Years of living on the east side teaches you how to shut off your emotions. You don't want to explode, you learn to cool it. The nurses appeared in the doorway. Johnny, she said quietly, your mom's here to see you. Johnny opened his eyes. At first, we were wide and surprised, and then they darkened. I don't want to see her, he said firmly. She's your mother. I said I don't want to see her. His voice was raising. She's probably come to tell me all the trouble I'm causing her and how she's glad her and the old man'll be when I'm dead. Well, tell her to leave me alone for once. His voice broke. For once, leave me alone. He was struggling to sit up, but he suddenly gasped. He got whiter than a pillowcase and passed out cold. Nurse hurried me out the door. I was afraid of something like this if he saw anyone. I ran into Two-Bit, who was coming in. You can't see him now, the nurse said, so Two-Bit handed her the book. Make sure he can see it when he comes around. She took it and closed the door behind her. Two-Bit stood and looked at the door a long time. I wish it was any one of us except Johnny, he said. His voice was serious for once. We could get along without anyone but Johnny. Turning abruptly, he said, let's go see Dallas. As we walked out into the hall, I saw Johnny's mother. I knew her. She was a little woman, her straight black hair, her black eyes like Johnny's. But that was as far as the resemblance went. Johnny Cake's eyes were fearful and sensitive. Her eyes were cheap and hard. As we passed her, she was saying, but I have a right to see him. He's my son. After all the trouble his father and I have gone to raise him, this is our reward. He'd rather see these no-count hoodlums than his own folks. She saw us and gave us such looks of hatred that I almost backed up. It was your fault. Always running around in the middle of the night getting jailed and heaven knows what else. I thought she was going to cuss us out. I really did. Two-Bit's eyes got narrower, and I was afraid he was going to start something. I didn't like to hear women get sworn at, even if they deserve it. No wonder he hates your guts, Two-Bit snapped. Two-Bit snapped. He was going to tell her off real good, but then I shoved him along. I felt sick. No wonder Johnny didn't want to see her. No wonder he stayed overnight at Two-Bit's or at our house or slept in a vacant lot in good weather. I remember my mother, beautiful and golden like soda, and wise and firm like dairy. Oh, Lordy, there was a catch in Two-Bit's voice, and he was closer to tears than I'd ever seen him. He has to live with that. We hurried to the elevator in the next floor and hoped the nurse would have enough sense not to let Johnny's mother in to see him. That would kill him. Daly was arguing with one of the nurses when we came in. He grinned at us. Man, am I glad to see you. These hospital people won't let me smoke, and I want out. We sat down, grinning at each other. Daly was his usual mean, ornery self. He's okay. Shepard came by to see me a while ago. That's what Johnny said. What do you want? Said he saw my picture in the paper and he couldn't believe I didn't have wanted dead or alive under it. He mostly came to rub it in around a rumble. Man, I hate not being in that. Only last week, Tim Shepard had cracked 3 of Daly's ribs, but Daly and Tim Shepard had always been buddies. No matter how they fought, there were 2 of them kind, and they knew it. Daly was grinning at me. Kid, you scared the devil out of me the other day. What? I thought I'd killed you. Me? I said, puzzled. Why? When you jumped out of the house, I meant I hit you just hard enough to knock you down to put out the fire, but then you dropped like a ton of lead. I thought I'd aimed too high and broke your neck. He thought for a minute. I'm glad I didn't, though. I bet. I said with a grin. I never liked Daly, but then from time to time I felt like he was my buddy, and all because he was glad he hadn't killed me. Daly looked out the window. He sounded very casual. How's the kid? We just left him, Two-Bit said, and I could tell that he was debating whether to tell Daly the truth or not. I don't know about this stuff, but, well, he seemed pretty bad to me. He passed out cold before we left him. Daly's jawline went white as he swore between his clenched teeth. Two-Bit, you still fancy that black-handled switchblade? Yeah? Gimme here. Two-Bit reached into his back pocket for his prized possession. It was a jet-handled switchblade, 10 inches long, would flash open with a mere breath. It was a reward for 2 hours of walking aimlessly around a hardware store to divert suspicion. He kept it razor sharp. As far as I knew, he had never pulled it out on anyone. He used his plain pocket when he needed a blade, but it was his showpiece, his pride and joy. Every time he ran into a new hood, he pulled it out to show it off. Daly knew how much a knife meant to Two-Bit, and if he needed a blade bad enough to ask for it, well, he needed a blade. Then that was all there was to it. Two-Bit handed it over to Daly without a moment's hesitation. We gotta win that fight tonight, Daly said. His voice was hard. We gotta get even with those Soch for Johnny. He put the switch under his pillow and lay back, staring at the ceiling. We left. We better we knew better than to talk to Daly when his eyes were blazing in the mood he was in. We decided to catch a bus home and just didn't feel much like walking or trying to hitch a ride. Two-Bit left me standing in the bench in the bus stop while he went to the gas station to buy some cigarettes. It was kind of sick to my stomach, sort of groggy. I was nearly asleep when I felt someone's hand on my forehead. I almost jumped up out of my skin. Two-Bit was looking down at me worriedly. You feel okay? You're awful hot. I'm all right, I said, when he looked at me as if I didn't believe me. I got a little panicky. Don't tell Derry, okay? Come on, Two-Bit. Be a buddy. I'll be well by tonight. I'll take a bunch of aspirins. All right, Two-Bit said reluctantly, but Derry will kill me if you were really sick and went to fight anyway. I'm okay, I said, getting a little angry. And if you keep your mouth shut, Derry won't know a thing. You know something, Two-Bit said as we were riding the bus home? You think you get away with murder, living with your big brother and all, but Derry's stricter with you than folks were, ain't he? Yeah, I said, but he raised two boys before me. Derry hasn't. You know, the only thing that keeps Derry from being a soc is us. I know, I said. I had known it for a while. In spite of not having much money, the only reason Derry couldn't be a soc was us, the gang, me and Soda. Derry was too smart to be a greaser. I don't know how I knew it. I just did. It was kind of sore, and I was kind of sorry. I was silent for most of the way home, thinking about the rumble. I had a sick feeling in my stomach, and I wasn't from feeling being ill. It was the same kind of helplessness I felt that night that Derry yelled at me for going sleeping a lot, and I had the same deathly fear that was something going to happen. None of us could stop. It was get off the bus and finally said, Tonight, I don't like it one bit. Two-Bit pretended not to understand. I knew you to play chicken in a rumble before, not even when you was a little kid. I knew he was trying to make me mad, but took the bait anyway. I ain't chicken, Two-Bit Matthew. It just knew it, and you knew it. I said angrily. I ain't a Curtis the same as ain't I a Curtis the same as Soch and Derry?